Okay, so tonight we are having our live discussion in honor of SAAM SA Awareness Month to wrap up week 2, which was protecting children online. So we shared 3 links again this week, all specific to protecting children online. And we're just going to go over some of the key points that were in those articles. I know a lot of parents don't have time to read all of this. It's a lot of information, so I'm going to try and get through it quickly. So we started off with the most recent article we posted was one actually provided by the FBI New York. They launched a campaign called It's Not a Game and debuted the public service announcement. They believe that this would help kick off the broader conversation. So they have a little video. It's about a minute long. I'm going to play that. And then we'll start talking about online safety for children.
It's not a game. This could be happening to your child as you watch this video. I'm Bill Sweeney. I head up the FBI in New York City, and I'm asking parents and guardians to pay attention to this. As soon as that instant message pops up on your child's browser or on their smartphone, there could be a sexual predator on the other end. It takes only a few days, sometimes just hours, to groom your child into sending compromising photos to the person on the other end of that chat. Then the threats begin. That predator starts to ask for photos of your child, something they would be ashamed of if anyone, including you, found out. Then they threaten to post them online if they don't keep sending more and more graphic photos. If you lock your doors at night to protect your family from an intruder, you should be locking down your computers. It's that simple. If you go to fbi.gov/itsnotagame, there are very specific ways to stop those predators from getting near your child. A moment of your time could save a lifetime of trauma for your child.
Yeah, I don't know how well that worked. For me, it was cutting in and out a lot. So I don't know. Maybe that will show better after the live in the replay. But if not, you guys can go to FBI/It's Not a Game. Or we also have it posted on our social media accounts. So you can watch it there as well. But it's nice to see other organizations are putting forth these campaigns and they're seeing the issues. So basic guidelines to share with your kids for safe online use. Follow family rules and those set by the internet service providers. So make sure you guys set some family rules and we'll go over some examples of things you can do. We want to discuss with children never posting or trading personal pictures. As a general rule, your child shouldn't post anything they wouldn't want a parent or a teacher to see or read. Everything that's posted online is permanent. Explain that Snapchat posts are not temporary as they were intended to be. People can take screenshots of a photo before it disappears. So encourage children to really protect themselves and respect themselves. We also want to encourage them to protect and respect their friends' privacy as well. So they should ask permission before posting something about a friend, such as a photo or a video. They should also be aware of what your friends are posting about them as well. So make sure you're having these conversations with your children. These are things that you can discuss with kids to help protect them while they're using the internet and while they're playing online. People can always control what others post about them. So explain that information and photos found online can turn up again years later. Never reveal personal information such as addresses, phone numbers, school name, or locations. And use only a screen name and don't share passwords with others, including friends. stuff like that. So screen name would just be a fake name. They don't need to use their real name. They definitely shouldn't be using their full names. So screen names are good for kids, especially when they're just playing games and stuff. Never agree to get together with people without meeting anyone. Never agree to meet with online without parents' approval and supervision. So encourage your children that friends that are online friends should remain online friends. They should stay in that online world, as we don't always know who these people are and they don't know who we are. Never respond to threatening emails, messages, or posts or texts. So tell your children to report that. Don't respond to it. Always tell a parent or a trusted adult about any communication or conversation that was scary or hurtful. Using apps, games, reporting features is important to be very. The reporting features in the apps and games are apparently very unhelpful. So there is an article I read about this where statistics said that it's over 60% of children or youth who experienced inappropriate behavior, misconduct online, use these reporting apps and features within the games and the apps that they were using, but found them to be very unhelpful. It was like very, very low percentage of kids said that they actually even received a response or found it was helpful. They said most of the people that were creating the issues would just create new accounts and then continue the abuse. So it was very hard to actually prevent it just by using the online reporting features. The nice thing about that is that a lot of kids are willing to report it. Unfortunately, who they're reporting it to just isn't sufficient. They're not actually doing much about it. So we need to make sure that we're teaching children not to just use the reporting apps features in their apps and games, but to actually talk to a human being, a person, about that kind of stuff. I can imagine, Catherine, that it's common for children to just use the reporting feature and not actually probably tell a parent.
No,
or
because
anybody.
a lot of them think that it's going to be taken care of until you see that it's actually not. Like I know in my own experience, just reporting fake accounts and whatnot, there's usually not even a follow-up. So
Yeah, exactly. And we're adults, right? So imagine for a kid how lost, they are
they're not
navigating that
understanding.
kind of So no, we definitely need to make sure that we tell children that there's other ways to report this stuff outside of those features in those apps and games. So they need to come and talk to trusted adults like their parents and so forth. So some basic guidelines for parental supervision. So keep the computer in a common area where you can watch and monitor its use, not in individual bedrooms, and monitor the time spent on smartphones or tablets. So I tell this to parents a lot, not to allow children, especially children, and even young teens, not to have laptops, computers, tablets, phones in their rooms. And if they are having them in their rooms, then there should be an open door policy while those devices are in their rooms and being used, even game consoles. Because kids can still communicate with people online through those games. And it's very common for people to be groomed and abused through a lot of the games, through consoles and through apps that kids are playing. Bookmark kids' favorite sites for easy access for them. And check your credit card and phone bills for unfamiliar accounts. Find out what, if any, online protection is offered from your child's schools, aftercare centers, friends' homes, or any places where kids could use computers without your supervision. So it's good to be aware of that. Especially, I would recommend that for kids' schools and aftercare. If they have access to online, then I would be very interested in knowing what those policies are and procedures for preventing any harm to children while using them. Just like we discussed last week about those policies and procedures for preventing abuse within the school in general. So protecting them also online. What are those policies and procedures, and what do they look like? How much thought and effort are they putting into that? So yeah, I know there's a lot of work that a lot of our systems can do to do more and to do better for children. So, yeah, I think it's up to parents to kind of start making themselves more familiar with, you know, whether that's being met or not, and voicing their concerns to make sure that those things do start being met, because child safety is important. So it goes
Absolutely.
beyond fighting. Okay, so protecting children online. So here's just a list of some things that we can do, and this is stuff that I pulled from these 3 articles that we shared throughout the week. So again, you can go back and reference those, and there's obviously more information. I'm just kind of pulling the main stuff out here. So learn about the programs and apps that your child is using. Some social media platforms have age restrictions to join, but it is easy for children to get around those. Show interest in your child's online life and ask questions. Get online family protection. So programs that provide parental controls can block websites, enforce time limits, monitor the websites your children visit, and their online conversations. So these are things that can be purchased. But if you have children that are using online and have phones and tablets and stuff, which if you have children, you probably do, it's probably worth it. Follow your children's online accounts and tell them that you are monitoring their online activity to help keep them safe. Some children or teens may create fake accounts. So that way their parents, don't see everything. But again, teaching children that even if they're posting it on an account you're not aware of, that doesn't mean that somebody else might not take it and post it, where eventually your parents might see it. So that's where that rule comes into play. Never post something that you wouldn't want your teacher or your parent to see, because once it's posted, there's a good chance at some point they'll see it. Ask them about the people that they meet online, show genuine interest. This will help them feel comfortable talking about it. I explained that it's easy for someone on the internet to pretend to be someone that they are not. So that's also very important to start teaching to children very young. Some teens may try to find dates or partners on dating sites. So talk to them about finding healthy and safe relationships. Check your child's privacy policy settings to make sure that they aren't sharing more information than you want. So for example, their birth date and location. So go into their apps and games and check those privacy settings, and just make sure that all that information is not showing to the general public, that's kept private. And if they have a GPS, smartphone, or tablet, then also make sure that you turn off their locations in the settings in that device, because then when they're playing games, or if they, make a post or whatever, depending on what they're using, it could geotag their location, and so people can actually see, like if they're posting a photo at school, like, okay, this child goes to this school, or they live in this community, or they live in this house, or this is the park that they play in, and now I have the address to it. So we want to make sure that the locations on those devices are turned off for children using devices, even in the home. So
yeah, well, I just recently learned, which I'm probably behind on, but Snapchat, you have to actually go in, because it will show your live location wherever you go, if you have that app and an account on your phone. But you have to actually go into settings and shut that off.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that they generally are enabled right from the get-go, and so it doesn't give you the option when you set up the app or the game. You actually have to go in and physically look for that setting and disable it.
And it's not always easy to find.
And you have to do that for each app and each game. So it's not specific to the device, it's specific to whatever it is that they're using. So that's fun.
Yeah.
Happy hunting. But that's where some of those programs, like I mentioned before, right, the family protection programs that you can purchase, because those will help track the games and the apps and the websites that your children are visiting. So at least, you know, you have a list, you know, kind of where to start going through those accounts and make sure that the settings and privacy and everything is all set, and yeah, make sure we're not sharing information that they're not even aware that they're sharing. So so what about limits? So model good behavior on your own social media accounts, right? Children, you know, do as they see. So set screen time limits and set rules on when screens are appropriate to use. So they shouldn't have their devices in their bedrooms at night by themselves or overnight or so on and so forth. There should be, they should be able to turn that off and keep it out of those areas. So teach your children the value of unplugging from devices for technology-free time. Social media can be exciting, but it should be considered entertainment. Remind your child that media can be, remind your child that, yeah, no message is so important that it can't wait until the morning. So yeah, like again, just putting media away, putting these devices away, keeping them out of the bedrooms, setting limits on that stuff, setting healthy boundaries, and modeling good behavior yourself for your children. And then obviously keep in mind that some children have, you know, streaks and stuff or games or whatever, so on and so forth. So it could create some issues, some stress and anxiety there. So make sure you have these discussions with your children, and you set maybe some schedules and boundaries together, maybe include them in that, and then maybe they'll respect it a little bit more. Yeah, kids are fun. So there's some warning signs that you can watch for. If you see some of these, there's a possibility that a child is being targeted by an online predator. So we want to make sure that we start opening up lines of communication with that child or youth. So some of these include spending long hours online, especially at night, phone calls from people you don't know, unsolicited gifts arriving in the mail, your child suddenly turning off the computer when you walk into the room, withdrawing from family life, and reluctance to discuss online activities. So if your child isn't even interested in having those conversations, that's maybe a little bit of a concern, and something that you should definitely strive to open up those barriers and walls, because it's very important to have that open line of communication, as you're going to see, because that's pretty much a lot of what we're going to be discussing going forward. Is there anything you can think of, Catherine, that I'm missing when it comes to warning signs for children who are potentially being targeted by online predators?
I guess I would say, you know, if they, like you said, become more withdrawn, little bit of changes in personality, you know, it's just important to keep having those conversations.
So yeah,
And
maybe
to start,
experiencing
like, technology
depression.
is such a big thing. It's part of society now from, you know, toddler years, baby years, that it's just so important to incorporate that in teaching your kids, because it's going to be a permanent thing, I'm sure, for the rest of our days. So
Yeah, it's just going to keep enhancing from here, right? So
yeah,
as you're learning all this stuff, there's just going to be more and more things that you're going to have to keep learning, because it's constantly advancing.
yeah. Well, and that's just it with all the new games, the new apps, the new everything new. They're just all different channels that could potentially put a child at risk if they're not aware of those risks. So a little more work for the parents, but
Yeah, definitely some more research for parents, and another thing to be mindful of for parents when it comes to protecting their children, because now it's not just protecting them, in the community and from strangers, but also from family and friends and also online, and it just kind of never ends, right? And there are different strategies when it comes to protecting children in the community from strangers and protecting them from family and friends and then protecting them online. But the one thing that remains consistent throughout all three of those is communication and education. So that's something that we definitely have to stress and get parents to really focus on ensuring that they're communicating with their children, educating their children, because that's going to be the best way to prevent stuff like this from happening. So,
Yeah.
So information sharing and open lines of communication, again, are the best defense. Young people need to know this crime is happening and understand where the risks are hiding. So explaining to children in your life that people can pretend to be anyone or anything online, a stranger reaching out to them online may be doing so with bad intent, and no matter what the platform or application claims, nothing disappears online again. So if they take a photo or video, it always has the potential to become public. The other crucial element is to keep the door open to your children so that they know that they can come to you to ask for help. So let them know that your first move will always be to help them. These predators are powerful because of fear. The victims suffer even more negative consequences as the crime carries on over days, weeks, and months. If you are the adult a child trusts with this information, comfort them, help them understand that they have been the victim of a crime, and help them report it to law enforcement. And we have some information about reporting online abuse as well. So how do you know who can be trusted online? That's what's so hard about online connections. So even the FBI has found that those who commit this crime may have dozens or different online accountants and profiles and are communicating with many young people at the same time, trying to find victims. So this is why it's so important that when we find out that these things are happening to our children, even if our children don't fall for it, they don't comply, they don't actually become victims, and they report it to a parent or whatever, who then helps them block them or change settings or whatever. That's not enough. We need to report these accounts and these people so that way agencies who are designated and skilled in investigating these matters can actually look into these, because if these people do have multiple victims and children that they're communicating with, trying to do the same stuff to, which they likely do, those children may not be telling somebody. Those children may not be speaking out. They may not have the right support network or whatever to help them. So it's very important that we're encouraging children to tell. And then it's also just as important that when they do tell, that we're helping them report it, and we're doing everything we can to try and prevent this from happening to them again and to other children. So we want to encourage that. And then obviously just always be extremely cautious when you're communicating with anyone online that you don't personally know. So it's easy to think that, I'm on my phone, again, I'm in my house, so what could possibly happen? But you can very quickly give a criminal the information and material to do harm. So again, sometimes we forget this as adults. We need to make sure that we really stress this to children and youth. Probably, more so children and youth for sure. It's very important that they're aware how important it is to protect private information when they're online or even playing games. And maybe younger children need to be explained that when they're playing games, they're online. So they need to make sure that they're protecting information. They're not necessarily just talking to the game. There's actually other people, and we don't know these
On the
people.
other end of that
So these people are strangers. I think stranger danger exists more online than it does in society nowadays.
Yeah,
so
it's evolved that way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah. So why would any child or teen agree to do such a thing? Um, a lot of people who have never been abused, this is kind of the first question they always ask is why would anyone comply or why would anybody agree to it? So the individual that's carrying out the crimes are very skilled and ruthless and have honed their techniques and approaches to maximize their chances at success. The entry point to a young person can be any number of mobile or online sites, applications, or games. The approach may come as compliments or flattery, as the pretense of the beginning of a romantic relationship. So another entry point is to offer the child something that they value in exchange for taking a quick picture. This could be the possibility of a modeling contract, online game credits or codes, money, cryptocurrency, and gift cards. The third common point of entry is to go right to threats by either claiming they already have an image of the young person that they will distribute or threaten to harm the child or other people or things the child cares about. Once the perpetrator has the first image, they use the threat of exposure or other harm to keep the child producing more and more explicit material. A lot of parents, and I hear this a lot, but my child would never do that. So according to the FBI, they have interviewed victims as young as 8 years old, which is horrific to think about. And the crime affects children of both genders and crosses all ethnic and socioeconomic groups. The victims are honor roll students, the children of teachers, student athletes, etc. The only common trait among victims is internet access. They all had access to the internet. So it's you have to be careful. These people, they know what they're doing. They're adults and they're victimizing children because they know they're more likely to get away with it. So why don't kids and youth tell? The cycle of victimization continues because the child is afraid. So afraid of the repercussions threatened by the criminal and afraid they will be in trouble with their parents, guardian, or law enforcement. By the time a child is a victim, they have done something that may be generally feeling of shame and embarrassment. The criminal may also be telling them that they have produced child P. I don't know if I can say the word P gruffy, just because I know some of the platforms censor a lot of these words. So, so yeah, they might have convinced the child that they've, produced this and will be prosecuted for it to get in trouble. In addition, that they may fear their access to their phone or computer will be taken away from them as a result of their actions. Yeah, so that's unfortunate because that's also the same reason why a lot of children don't actually report their abuse as well. And I'm speaking in real life, not online, is because again, they feel ashamed. They feel embarrassed. They feel like no one will believe them. They feel like they're going to get in trouble or they did something wrong. So it exists in both worlds. And that's why we need to make sure that we're educating our children as opposed to allowing potential predators to be educating our children, because when they're telling our children this and they're not hearing anything that's telling them otherwise, then this is basically all they know because this is what they're being taught. So we need to make sure that we're taking control over our children's education in regards to these matters, because if we're not educating them about abuse and they are being abused, then that means they're being educated by their abuser. And that's not
okay.
good. Yeah. So how can online abuse actually harm a child or youth? So it's true that these criminals don't usually meet up with kids in real life, but the victims of these crimes still experience negative effects. The criminals can become vicious and nonstop with their demands, harassment, and threats. Victims report feeling scared, alone, embarrassed, anxious, and depressed, as well as desperate. Many feel like there's no way out of the situation. So, Catherine, have you ever heard of Amanda Todd?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen her video.
Yeah.
So yeah, her story starts with sextortion. So we'll explain what that is a little bit as well, but that's basically what this is, where she was forced into providing photos or convinced to provide some photos, and then they got spread around publicly. She started getting bullied at school. This offender followed her around from school to school, neighborhood to neighborhood. He was relentless, ruthless. She did end up taking her life. I would recommend that anyone who doesn't know Amanda Todd's story, that you Google it and watch her video. We'll post it on our social media as well. Tragic story, but I would definitely recommend that parents watch it so they have a better idea of how these things happen and what kids are actually feeling, what they're going through during these experiences. And if your children are old enough, and potentially allow them to watch it as well. I would not recommend it for young children. This is a very young girl who's sharing her story, and it's horrific what happens to her. So this is definitely for an older audience. But I would say older teens might be interested in learning about this story. It might provide some perspective for them as to why this is relevant for them and applies to them. I know a lot of teens think they're invincible. We all go through that stage, so it's just something that maybe they can relate to, or maybe help them understand better why this stuff is important, that we're teaching them and explaining to them. If you have that teen that's just kind of rolling their eyes at you when you try and talk to them about these topics, maybe the Amanda Todd video and have them watch that and see if they're interested in having a discussion. Like I said, it is very graphic, so maybe watch it yourself first and determine if that's appropriate for your child. You know your teen better than anyone else, but I definitely recommend parents make themselves familiar with that story. So what can people do if this is happening to them? How do we report online abuse? So this can be reported in Canada to cybertip.ca. If you're in the US, you can report this directly to the FBI. You can go to their website and they have online reporting for online abuse and exploitation of children. There's also a 1-800 number that's available here in Canada. And again, we're going to post this information for everybody on our social media. So we'll get that up tomorrow just to have that. And we'll make this also available on our website at some point. So that's, and then there's also a text number, a text connect number. So again, we'll make that available on our website. Anyone who wants any more information about any of this, or like a copy of maybe a PDF of this information, as opposed to going through all the websites, you guys can just send us an email and we can provide all of this to you. We also have information packages that we provide for free to anybody who sends us an email and requests those. So go ahead, send us an email. Our email is there at the bottom of the screen for anybody who would like them. Oh, Catherine's back. Maybe she's not that one. That one's frozen. There we are.
There.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I hit something.
No, it's no worries. Okay, so yeah, so like I said, you can report that. We'll put the information on on all of our stuff for everybody. And again, send us an email or reach out to us through our social media if you guys need more information or if you have any questions. For teens and youth, if you guys aren't ready to speak to police or report this, please go to a trusted adult. Tell them that you're being victimized online and that you need help. Talking about this can help. I can definitely feel impossible, but there are people who can help, and you are not the one who is in trouble. So you're not the one who's breaking the law. This situation can feel really confusing, and the criminals count on you feeling too unsure or embarrassed to tell someone. So even if this started on an app or a site that you're too young to be on, or even if you felt okay about making some of the content, even if you accepted money or a game credit or something else, you're not the one who is in trouble. So sextortion is a crime because it is illegal and wrong for an adult to ask for, pay for, or demand graphic images from a minor. So regardless of what you agreed to or what you've provided willingly, you've done nothing wrong and you need to report what's happening. So how can you help someone else who is in this situation? So if you learn that a friend or a classmate or a family member is being victimized, listen to them with kindness and understanding. Tell them you are sorry that this is happening to them and that you want to help. Let them know that they are the victim of a crime and have done nothing wrong. Encourage them to ask for help and see if you can help them identify a trusted adult to tell. So sextortion is basically when an offender convinces a youth to provide images. So again, either by flattery or by offering something in exchange or by threatening them. Sometimes, again, a lot of times they'll say they already have photos or images of the child or youth that they'll use that they'll make public if they don't provide more, kind of thing. And so they're basically extorting youth and children online for a sexual purpose. And it's becoming extremely common. I know during the last 2 years with schools and everything being shut down, I know in the first 3 months of lockdowns in 2020, I think there were reporting rates of online child exploitation had increased by, it was over 100%. It was like 118% or something. I'd have to go back and find the article, but it was absolutely ridiculous. So, and even prior to 2020, the numbers were still increasing at drastic rates. So as online use and activity becomes more and more common in our everyday world and more common for youth and teens and in their everyday world, then the more those numbers go up. And this is a very new world and subject of education for parents today of youth and teens, because this was not something that we ever experienced growing up or were taught about growing up or had to worry about. Our parents didn't have to worry about this stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. Catherine, you have a teenage son.
Yes.
So did you ever have any like scares or serious concerns when he was starting to get into, online gaming?
Honestly,
stuff?
I did actually a couple years ago, because he's a very loud gamer. And I overheard a conversation with one of the games he was playing that sounded like it was inappropriate, like just based on the things that I could hear him saying. So yeah, like I promptly went down, had a discussion with him, had a little bit of an info session about these things, about like you really don't know who's on the other end. And I did investigate a little further, and it was just some of him and his football bros, talking inappropriately to each other. But he
Fair
was
enough.
very aware of that whole situation, and giving our personal information out. Actually, I had a similar experience with Marketplace on Facebook, where he was trying to sell some things, and he went ahead, like I'm sure anybody that uses it, or at least I know I do, I go ahead and I scope out potential buyers before giving my home address out, and he didn't do this. And I know it was a few months later, I did see other Facebook posts come up about this buyer stealing from people, scamming people, all that kind of thing. So, which I then did show him too. Like, you really have to just be cautious, ask questions. And if you feel something's off, it's definitely more than likely not right, or something not right is going on. So yeah, that was fun. But he's very aware now. So, man.
Well, and like I said, this is also new for parents
Yeah.
now, right? So it's, so we actually did have a parent who reached out to us when we mentioned we were going to be doing a talk about online safety for children and youth. And they were asking about information specific to her teen son. And so she was concerned that he has a new girlfriend and they message and talk online. Obviously, a lot of youth over the last couple of years have been doing a lot of their socializing through online apps and messengers and chats and so on and so forth. So her concern is, what are the legalities around, my 15-year-old son and his 15-year-old girlfriend and their communications, which is a valid concern for a parent for their teen, to make sure that they know kind of what they can and can't be doing, and they understand what their responsibilities are and what the consequences are if they don't meet those responsibilities. So I got thinking about this, and I thought that it would be good for us to host a teen talk where we discuss some of the legalities around teens socializing with other teens online, asking for photos, sharing photos. What are some of the consequences of that stuff, or what could be some of the consequences of that stuff? As well as, I wanted to add to that conversation the rules around consent. I think that that's a very important thing for not only adults to be aware of, but adults to be making sure their teens are aware of. They understand what consent is, what the legal definition of consent is, what can happen if they don't obtain consent or if they don't give consent.
Yeah, because I don't think that's a big conversation that's common.
Yeah, so I reached out to a criminal lawyer who practices, she has her own practice here in Alberta, and asked if she would be interested in joining us for this discussion specifically, as she can provide a lot of information and insight from a legal background and perspective regarding these topics. And I think that between the research that we do and the information that she will have, we can have a really good discussion surrounding this topic specifically for teens.
Right.
Yeah, so we're going to plan that for the month of May, and sometime in May, and we'll let everyone know. We'll make some posts about it, and we'll try and share those out to give everyone a heads up of when that's going to be. And we invite everyone to come. Anyone who has questions, if you are a teenager and you have questions, if you are a parent of a teen and you have some questions regarding these topics, if you're a parent of a teen, I would recommend asking your teen if they have any questions about these topics. Be like, hey, I'm going to be watching this. Do you have any questions about this? because I'm going to try and get some information. Invite your teens to watch this conversation with you. This is going to be a family-friendly discussion. We won't be cursing or anything like that. Doesn't pertain so much to younger children, and they might not be very entertained by the discussion, but I think it would be a great thing for parents and teens to watch together if you have the opportunity to do that. You're free to watch it yourself first and decide if you want to watch it with your teen after, just by watching a replay. So that's an option as well, but I definitely think that this will be a good conversation, and I hope that we get some people reaching out to us to ask some questions to make sure that we can cover as much information about this topic as possible and get some really good information out there and available for parents and teens. So people can also email us, and our email's at the bottom of the screen there. You can contact us through Facebook, our Instagram, Twitter, and we're happy to make notes of all your questions. And again, we're going to be having a lawyer on here with us, so if you have any questions, we can make sure that she addresses those and provides as much information as possible. I think that will be a really good conversation.
That'll be a great one.
Do you have anything else to add, Catherine? Or I think we pretty much covered the basics. Like I said, we do have the info packages that people can send us an email and request copies of.
Yeah, I think I don't have much to add tonight.
So we just kind of covered the basics. And again, if people have questions about this topic or this conversation that we've had, feel free to reach out to us, and we can go ahead and provide more information or answer questions about these topics, as well as links to the resources that we were referencing, which again are all on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. So you can find those there as well. Facebook is Survivors Fighting for Change Foundation, and our Twitter is @WeNeedChange. So otherwise, guys, I think that's it. Catherine and I are going to go enjoy the rest of our Sunday night. And next week we're going to be back. So we have the last 2 weeks of April. We're going to be covering for week 3 stats and reporting. So information regarding statistics surrounding this topic, as well as information regarding reporting specific to this topic. And then week 4, we're going to be discussing societal change and law reform. So we'll have another live next Sunday at 7 to wrap up week 3, and then we'll have our last live for this awareness campaign, which will be the first Sunday of May, and that will be wrapping up week 4. And then in May, again, we'll go back and we'll have a discussion. We'll do the teen talk, and we have some other things that are going to be coming up. So spring and summer are coming. We have events that are going to start happening, so we will start posting about those. We hope to start seeing lots of our supporters and start meeting a lot of families and community members and providing them with more information to help better educate their children and youth. Otherwise, everyone, I guess we'll have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.